On this single day in human history, the impossible became inevitable. May the 12th. A date that echoes across the centuries of innovation. In 1941, a machine flickered to life in Berlin, its circuits humming with the first breath of the computer age. 15 years earlier, an airship drifted silently over the frozen crown of our planet, conquering the North Pole from the sky. And in 1965, a Soviet spacecraft hurtled toward the lunar surface, carrying humanity's ambitions to another world. 3 moments. 3 leaps into the unknown. Today, we journey through the day that reshaped civilization, not once, not twice, but 3 times over. In the spring of 1941, while the world burned in the fires of war, a quiet revolution was taking place in a cramped Berlin apartment. A young German engineer named Konrad Zuse was about to unveil a machine that would change the course of human history forever. This is the story of the Z3, the world's first working programmable, fully automatic computer. Picture a world without smartphones, without the internet, without digital anything. In 1941, complex calculations were performed by rooms full of human workers, hunched over mechanical adding machines, spending weeks on problems that today would take milliseconds. Engineers designing aircraft had to rely on slide rules and mathematical tables. Errors were common. Progress was painfully slow. Konrad Zuse saw a different future. Working in near isolation, funded largely by his own family and small grants, Zuse constructed an electromechanical marvel in his parents' living room. The Z3 stood about the size of a large wardrobe, humming with the clicks and whirs of 2,400 telephone relays. It could add, subtract, multiply, divide, and even calculate square roots, all controlled by punched film tape carrying its instructions. What made the Z3 revolutionary was not simply its ability to calculate. Other machines could do that. What set it apart was its programmability and its full automation. Once given instructions, it required no human intervention. It could run program after program, adapting to different problems without being physically rebuilt. This was the fundamental leap, the moment when machines stopped being mere calculators and became true computers. Yet history nearly forgot Konrad Zuse entirely. Working in Nazi Germany, cut off from the scientific communities of Britain and America, his achievements went largely unrecognized for decades. The original Z3 was destroyed in a bombing raid in 1943. It was only years later that historians began to understand the magnitude of what this lone inventor had accomplished. The Allied powers would develop their own computing machines during the war, machines like Colossus and ENIAC, but Zuse had gotten there first. He had glimpsed the future before almost anyone else and had the genius to build it with his own hands. Today, the descendants of the Z3 are everywhere. They are in your pocket, on your wrist, embedded in your car, running the global economy, connecting billions of people across the planet. Every time you send a message, stream a video, or ask a question of an artificial intelligence, you are standing on the shoulders of Konrad Zuse. 85 years ago today, in a Berlin living room, the digital age was born. On May 12, 1926, a silver giant drifted silently through the frozen air above the top of the world, and humanity conquered its final frontier. The airship Norge, a sleek semi-rigid dirigible built in Italy and piloted by an international crew, had just achieved what explorers had dreamed of for centuries, the first verified flight over the North Pole. After countless failed expeditions, frozen corpses, and shattered ships, the Arctic had finally been crossed, not by dog sled, not by submarine, but by floating through the sky. The Norge was the brainchild of Italian aeronautical engineer Umberto Nobile, who designed and commanded the vessel. But this was no solo venture. Norwegian explorer Roald Amundsen, already legendary for being the first to reach the South Pole, had partnered with Nobile and American financier Lincoln Ellsworth to mount this unprecedented expedition. 3 nations united by a single, audacious goal. The journey began in Rome, where the Norge was constructed and tested. The airship then traveled north through Europe, finally departing from Ellsund in Svalbard on May 11. 16 men crowded into the small gondola beneath the hydrogen-filled envelope as they headed into the unknown. For nearly 17 hours, the Norge pushed through Arctic winds, navigating by sun compass and dead reckoning. The crew peered down at endless ice fields that had claimed so many lives before them. Then, at approximately 1:15 in the morning on May 12, they reached 90 degrees north latitude. The North Pole lay directly beneath them. Amundsen dropped a Norwegian flag. Nobile released the Italian colors. Ellsworth planted the American stars and stripes. 3 banners fell onto ice that no human had ever verifiably stood upon. The Norge continued onward, eventually landing in Alaska after covering more than 3,000 miles in a single, continuous flight. The world erupted in celebration. Headlines proclaimed a new age of polar exploration. What had seemed impossible, the realm of tragic expeditions and frozen deaths, had been achieved with remarkable elegance. But the triumph of the Norge represented something far greater than geographic conquest. It proved that aircraft could operate in the most extreme environments on Earth. It demonstrated international scientific cooperation at its finest. And it opened our eyes to the potential of lighter-than-air travel over hostile terrain. Today, that legacy lives on in ways both visible and hidden. Arctic research stations depend on aircraft for supplies and personnel. Climate scientists fly over the poles monitoring ice loss. And the spirit of the Norge crew, that willingness to push beyond every known boundary, continues to inspire explorers charting territories as distant as Mars. 100 years later, their silver ship still flies through our imagination. 61 years ago today, a Soviet spacecraft hurtled toward the lunar surface at terrifying speed, its braking systems failing, its mission in jeopardy. On May 12, 1965, Luna 5 became the 5th Soviet probe to attempt a soft landing on the Moon. Unlike its predecessors, it failed spectacularly, slamming into the ancient dust of the Sea of Clouds. Yet in that violent impact, humanity took another crucial step toward the stars. The 1960s were defined by a single obsession, the space race. 2 superpowers, the Soviet Union and the United States, locked in a technological duel that would determine not just scientific supremacy, but ideological dominance over the entire planet. The Soviets had already achieved remarkable firsts. They launched Sputnik, the first satellite. They sent the first human, Yuri Gagarin, into orbit. Now, they set their sights on something far more ambitious, landing a spacecraft gently on another world. Before Luna 5, no human-made object had ever achieved a controlled landing on the Moon. Every previous attempt had ended in silence, in destruction, in the cold mathematics of failure. The challenge was immense. Engineers had to calculate trajectories across nearly 400,000 kilometers of empty space, design retro-rockets capable of slowing a plummeting spacecraft, and do all of this with technology that would seem primitive by today's standards. Luna 5 carried a revolutionary system designed to fire its braking engines at precisely the right moment. But space is unforgiving. A malfunction in the attitude control system meant the spacecraft could not orient itself properly. The retro-rockets fired uselessly into the void. The probe struck the lunar surface at hundreds of kilometers per hour, creating a new crater in the Mare Nubium. The Soviet space program, led by the legendary chief designer Sergei Korolev, refused to see this as defeat. Every crash provided data. Every failure refined the calculations. The engineers pored over telemetry, adjusted their designs, and prepared for the next attempt. Just 4 months later, Luna 9 would succeed where Luna 5 had failed, becoming the first spacecraft to achieve a soft landing on the Moon and transmit photographs back to Earth. Luna 5's sacrifice was not in vain. It proved that reaching the Moon was possible, that the engineering concepts were sound, and that persistence in the face of failure was the true currency of exploration. Today, we stand on the shoulders of those early pioneers. Every Mars rover that touches down safely, every lunar lander that settles gently into the regolith, every spacecraft that navigates the void carries the lessons learned from Luna 5's fiery descent. In failure, the Soviet engineers taught us how to succeed. And because of their determination, humanity now dreams of walking on. From Konrad Zuse's revolutionary Z3 computer that planted the seeds of our digital world, to the brave souls aboard the Norge who proved the Arctic could be conquered by air, to Luna 5's crash landing that taught us failure is just another step toward the Moon, each of these moments pushed humanity forward in ways their creators could only dream of. So here's my question for you. Which of these innovations do you think truly changed the world the most? The birth of computing, the conquest of the poles, or our first steps toward the stars? Drop your answer in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you want more stories like these, hit that subscribe button. I'll see you in the next